And for more on the beer industry, I spoke with Stephen Beaumont. Stephen is the author of a new book, We'll Travel for Beer, 101 Remarkable Journeys Every Beer Lover Should Experience. I started by asking him about the beer market in China.
The original Beijing craft breweries, brew pubs, they were all run by expats. But now we're starting to see Chinese opening up their own places. There's a real home brewing movement that's happening in China now, and that always stimulates people to open up their own businesses.
Well, let's talk about a thirst for this story, if you will. In the U.S., beer sales are down. Not terribly, but in some sectors they're going up, the microbreweries especially. What do you attribute this to?
Well, it really reflects the way society is going in general. We want something more from what we eat and drink. We want, we're more health conscious, so we're drinking less as a society, but we're also wanting that less to taste better, to taste more spectacular, more interesting. So commodity beers, which are beers that you buy by the case just to drink as cold as you can possibly get them, they're dropping in popularity, and that slack is being picked up by the craft breweries.
Let's talk about one company in particular. Constellation had its earnings come out today. They own Corona, Modelo, a few others, and so far this year, it had been down about 8%, but they beat earnings, and we're seeing a spike in its stock today. Do you think that's a trend, or is this something that you can't look into at this point?
Well, I think right now, Constellation really has pricing going for it. And this is a strategy that's worked very well for Anheuser-Busch InBev in North America for the last several years. Is that their sales have been dropping. The Bud line has been declining in popularity, but they've been able to tweak pricing upwards. So the revenues keep going up and up, even though sales are going down. With Corona and the various imported brands that Constellation has, they do have that ability to tweak the prices upwards, and that keeps revenue high. They're also, there's more than just beer to Constellation. They're exploring a lot of different avenues, including here in Canada, a $4 billion investment in cannabis. So there's a lot of different parts to Constellation going on.
Interesting, you're in Canada. We're talking about importing beer. We have to talk about tariffs, because I know a lot of the smaller beer companies are being hit pretty significantly. If this turns out to be a long, hard-fought tariff war, what's going to happen?
Well, the big thing right now is aluminum. In Canada, no one can get aluminum cans, and this is during a time in the industry where everyone has turned over to canning rather than bottling their beer. So this has become a major issue in Canada. I think that there are more elements at play than just the tariffs in the aluminum can issue, but I think long term, this could see us move back towards bottled beer again. There's no tariffs that I know of on glass bottles, and those things are moving a lot better now. So maybe we see a shift backwards in time.
You talked about other things at play. I'm curious what those are, and do you think there's any backlash against U.S. companies?
Well, the other things in play, I don't think there's a backlash against U.S. companies. I have heard that demand for Coke and Pepsi was unexpectedly high this summer. And so all the aluminum can companies, that's two of their major marketplaces. So they turned all their production over towards Coke and Pepsi. A couple of brewers have told me that was kind of the root of the problem.
Interesting. I want to talk about this month, too, because it doesn't get any bigger for beer than October. Let's talk about Oktoberfest, what it means in Munich, other parts of Germany, and then, of course, every place on the earth wants to celebrate this month.
Yes, Oktoberfest is a fascinating event. It's characterized constantly as this big beer festival for visitors to Germany. But in actual fact, what I discovered when I went there is that 85% of the participants in Oktoberfest are German. And the vast majority of those people are Bavarian. So really, we're talking about a Bavarian cultural festival that just happens to involve drinking a whole lot of beer. And thankfully, they invite the rest of the world to join them in that. So it's a great time. It's a wonderful season to be out drinking beer in Germany. If the weather's good, you can be outside in the beer gardens. If the weather's bad, you go into the beer tents. It's never too terribly cold, so it really is a pleasant time to be out there and drinking beer that's a little slightly stronger than what most German beer is.